today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about
how to move from surviving to thriving in your marriage. Are you with your kids and maybe you're going through your text messages or going through your email? That is a state of distraction and reaction. Technology can either hold us back or propel us forward. It all depends on how we use it. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and we are talking today about going from surviving to thriving, achieving self-mastery and relationship fulfillment. And this is the final episode in this series on technology and relationships. Don't worry, though, if you haven't been following along, this episode will stand on its own, but you're going to want to go over the previous 19 episodes after you've heard this one. Trust me, this is the juice. This episode contrasts surviving, living reactively, and using technology as an escape or distraction with thriving, which involves releasing old emotions, achieving self-mastery, and using tech and screens to enhance your personal and relational growth. Are you just getting by in your relationship? Do you feel like maybe your roommates? Are you distracting yourself with screens? Maybe you got an AI partner out there you've been getting to know and you're thinking that's taking some stress off the relationship. Or is your relationship thriving? Are you fully present and growing together? This episode explores the choice between surviving, getting by, which is a reactionary state. It's fueled by avoidance, and thriving, which is intentional. It's an intentional life of growth and fulfillment. And there's a lot that comes with being intentional. There are challenges that come with being intentional. Technology can either hold us back or propel us forward. It all depends on how we use it. And the point that I want you to get here is that technology is never the solution. It is an enhancer of the solution. AI, great tool. You can either use it to escape or you can use it to grow, but it all depends on the intention that you bring to using it. What does surviving look like? Do you feel like you're stuck in a cycle of reaction and distraction? Do you feel like your partner says something to you and you just kind of jump out of your skin sometimes? You go from 0 to 60? Are you going to work sometimes and you're not really present? Are you with your kids and maybe you're going through your text messages or going through your email? That is a state of distraction and reaction. Surviving means living reactively, avoiding pain through unhealthy habits, which can include overuse of screens and tech to escape. Surviving, think about surviving as what our forebears did when there just wasn't much food. They were always focused on getting more, never had time to really develop themselves except on how to get more, and couldn't put a lot into their relationships. Today, we have the benefit of having so much, and yet still we never seem to have enough time. We feel like every second needs to be used for getting more. But the fact is, if you have a roof over your head, food on the table, and people who love you, you've got more than our forebears had already. Mindless scrolling, binge watching, these are all ways that we can avoid contact, connection, and conversation. Or we can even use work as a distraction from relational tension. Or maybe we're feeling a little unfulfilled in our relationship and we're having conversations with someone at work that we should be having with our husband or wife. These are all distractions. Distractions. Human beings are masters of distractions, and technology is a masterful tool for being distracted. Well, what if you could take a break from the cycle of avoidance? What if you could start living truly intentionally? I don't just mean today I'm going to set an intention and then you get distracted. I mean, what if you were building your intentionality, carving out time for what's really important? You know, there's this great matrix called the Eisenhower decision-making matrix, and it's got 4 components. And my video editor We'll throw it up on the screen as I'm talking about it. The Eisenhower matrix has 4 boxes, and they're determined by whether something is urgent or not urgent, or whether it's important or not important. And so often in life, we get absorbed by the things that seem to be urgent but aren't really important. Like that person who cut us off on the road. That feels really urgent. But is it really important? Or that neighbor who gives us a dirty look feels really urgent in the moment. But is it really important? And then we tend to set aside the things that are important but not urgent, like gym time. Very important, not so urgent. Things that are urgent have to do with demands that outside of us. Or something that's important but not urgent might be time to talk to your partner just a little bit every day. Or things that might be important that are not urgent are when your kids carving out 5 minutes just to really be present to them and ask them how their day went. Thriving, people who are thriving are focusing on things that are important but not urgent. They're focusing on things that are important and urgent, and they're delegating or getting rid of things that are not important but urgent, or not important and not urgent. I want you to take that frame and use it in your life. Am I thriving or am I just surviving? Are old emotions and assumptions keeping you stuck in survival mode? If you are living in the world of not important and urgent, or not important and not urgent, then the chances are yes. Releasing old emotions creates space for self-awareness and intentional action, moving you from reaction to responsiveness is the word. So instead of somebody saying something to you and you going, "Bah!" Somebody says something to you and you pause and you think carefully and you respond thoughtfully. Like the partner, that person you love, when you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting, it makes all the difference in the world. We talked in earlier episodes about the difference here being how are you using the muscles that are your brain? Your brain is made up of several different parts, and I want you to think of your brain as being a group of muscles. We all tend to use our amygdala really heavily. The amygdala is the muscle that is reactive. It's fight, flight, or play dead. Anytime we have an extreme feeling of fear or anger or both, we're living in our amygdala usually. But there are other parts of our brain, and I'm going to emphasize particularly the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that decides what we're going to pay attention to. If we work on meditation, mindfulness, or prayer, we're hanging out in the prefrontal cortex. We've made a decision to be rational. The amygdala is irrational. The cortex, cerebral cortex, prefrontal cortex is rational. There are journaling apps for tracking emotional patterns and triggers. There are AI-driven tools for reflection. There are tools for creating actionable steps from journaling insights. There's all kinds of tech out there you can use to start exercising your prefrontal and cerebral cortex so that when your amygdala kicks in, you say, hey, this isn't life or death. This isn't as urgent as you think it is. The amygdala is amygdala drives a lot of urgency. Or our limbic system, which is the part of our body brain that decides to avoid pain and go towards pleasure. Sometimes we go towards pleasure that isn't good for us. Our prefrontal cortex is where we decide, am I going to turn on that screen and be distracted? Am I going to text while I'm driving? Or am I going to focus on where I am in this moment? When we develop the thinking part of our brain and make conscious choices, intentional choices, we move from survival to thriving. How can you use technology to enhance rather than escape your growth? Technology can be a powerful ally in personal and relational development when used intentionally. And we just did an episode, it was 1 or 2 episodes ago, all about it, how to do that. But examples might be using an AI-driven app for identifying patterns and setting goals, taking a big goal and breaking it down into milestones, grounding those milestones and calendaring them, using that app as an accountability partner instead of as your imaginary lover. You can use podcasts and YouTube videos and recorded books to listen to. You can stream content about shared interests together. It might be mindless drivel that you enjoy together, but you talk about it in a way that makes it not so mindless. You might create shared goals and use apps for tracking those shared goals. When you take this stance of both of you being intentional and focusing on what's important, but not necessarily urgent, that's when you open the door for joy and prosperity. And I want to be really clear that real prosperity and joy happen only when we're thriving. Yes, we can be in survival mode and have a lot of material well-being, but that is not the same as prosperity. Prosperity is knowing that there's enough. Prosperity is trusting your partner and trusting the process. Prosperity is no matter how much you physically have, knowing that it's enough to meet your needs today. Prosperity is faith and confidence in the future of your family. Joy is grounded in that prosperity. There's happiness and there's joy. Happiness is lack of stress, basically. But joy is when you're going through a stressful time, knowing that sometimes we go through stressful times to achieve a goal. And when we know that the stress is taking us to our goal, and that goal is a greater sense of prosperity, that is when we experience joy. We experience the joy of wrestling with ourselves to get to that goal. Are you prioritizing what brings you and your partner true joy and fulfillment, or are you prioritizing the things that are demanding your attention right now, but maybe aren't as important as you think? Thriving relationships are rooted in prosperity and joy. They're rooted in spirituality, which is about connection. They're rooted in emotional self-awareness and emotional connection. They're rooted in material success, but enjoying that material success with those you love, and even maybe those you don't. You know, there's a saying that if you feed your enemy, you drop mounds of hot coals of shame on them. When you care for the people that you don't know, when you reach out and give money to people who are struggling and help people who are struggling, you enjoy a sense of prosperity like no other. You maybe think that driving a Bugatti is prosperity, but real prosperity is having more than you need and helping others with what you have. Because there's joy in that. There's joy in knowing that not only are you benefiting yourself, but you are benefiting your kids. Not only are you benefiting your kids and your partner, but you're benefiting your extended family. Not only are you benefiting your extended family, but you're benefiting your community. Not only are you benefiting your community, but you're actually making a difference in the world. That is personal fulfillment. That is relationship fulfillment. That, my friends, is thriving in joy and prosperity. I want you to consider making thriving a lifelong practice. Thriving is not a place that we get. It is a lifelong practice. All right, we build habits over time. And if we continue to build habits, we become stronger and more successful. We build habits by practicing them. We don't do them perfectly, but we do them better. Ensuring that thriving is your default state involves not just being intentional. It involves practices. For your family, it involves not just personal habits, but traditions, right? For your community, it involves regular structural interaction and giving and intervention even. I want you to consider scheduling regular check-ins first with yourself. Make sure, am I taking care of my spirit? Am I taking care of my mind? Am I taking care of my body? Then I want you to consider checking in with your partner. How are you doing? How is your personal care going? And then next, I want you to consider together, how are we doing? Meeting the material goals that we have that are going to help us better nurture our family. How are we doing with nurturing our family? How is our family doing? And inevitably, you're going to see breakdowns, let's call them, or disparities, let's call them, or challenges that your children are having. And your children will be, through those challenges, challenging you to step in and be there with them. And your temptation is going to be to hand it off to someone on the outside. Outside help is vital, don't get me wrong. But the solution to any challenge your children is having has to do with you and your partner and things you need to work on. Your children are going to mirror the things that you need to work on. More than anything, I want you to balance your tech use with human connection. Right? And when you're using tech, when you're using screens, when you're listening to books, when you're listening to podcasts, when you're watching shows, when you're scheduling, when you're playing games, when you're working with AI, as much as possible, be intentional about it. I'm not saying you can never play a game again. What I'm saying is get that when you decide to play that game, it's a reward for having taken care of building habits, for having taken care of being attentive, not only to your own needs, but your relationship's need. When you decide to watch a program that's totally mindless and gobbledygook, which we all need to do from time to time, get that sometimes we just need to check out. But do it intentionally. We're not going to check out permanently. We're not going to check out all the time. We're not going to check out every day. We're just going to do it every now and then when we need to have a little outlet, a little blow off a little steam. And then afterwards, we're going to ask ourselves, all right, I've blown off some steam. What was it that was driving that? And how can I address it so that I don't feel like the steam is building up again? Because when we need to blow off steam, it's because there's something unresolved that's just reached an emotional point that where we can't handle it anymore. Then we blow off the steam and we feel like the problem's solved because the steam isn't as high, but it builds up again unless we address the source. Here at Rich in Relationship, we have helped countless couples address the source. So I want you to feel free to reach out to us. Go to richinrelationship.com, schedule a call with me personally. But more than anything, I want you to choose to thrive, not just survive. I want you to get it, that living reactively and trying to avoid pain through screens, through other people, through overworking, through overeating, through overdrinking, through oversexing, through overspending, none of that's going to get you where you really want to be. You want to be thriving. You want to be building an emotionally and financially prosperous relationship with your partner. You want to be experiencing the joy of knowing that when you hit a speed bump, once you get past it, you're going to be moving even better. You want to be mastering yourself, releasing old trauma, releasing old hurts and emotions from your childhood that are getting in the way of your moving forward. Because the truth is, nothing can stop you when you are balancing you and your family's needs with the needs of the greater good being all of those around you, being all those in the world. When we meet our own needs at the expense of those around us, yeah, we get some short-term gratification, but in the long term, that's not a sustainable strategy. But when we balance our individual and personal needs with the needs of the greater whole, that's where we start to thrive because it's sustainable. We can build up the people around us and ourselves at the same time. I want you to be intentional about how you use your technology. Use it to grow, not to avoid. And when you do that, joy and prosperity will grow as well, and you will thrive. Reflect on whether you're surviving or thriving right now, and identify one action, personal or relational, that you can take this week to move toward thriving. And let me know about it. Again, go to richinrelationships.com, schedule a call with me, and tell me all about it. Until then, have a wonderful day and an amazing tomorrow.